Good morning everyone, welcome to Raj Malhotra IAS. Welcome to our daily Hindu newspaper analysis. I hope everyone is fit and fine, and very warm good morning to all of you, right? As we are under now the, let's say, the crippling cold that has come on the North India, but we will try to catch up with it, right? Okay, good morning everyone, those who are live with us, right? Okay, so we are going to start the session for today. Before that, again I am trying to say you just go through this batch. You would have a very vast experience of the current affairs. You would be enriched within your knowledge of the current affairs, because we are not dealing with only one newspaper. We are dealing with variety of newspapers and magazines on a daily basis in our beautifully crafted ignited current affairs batch. If you have any doubts related to it, if you want to join this batch, you can contact on this number and avail this beautiful batch, that is ignited current affairs course, right? Okay. So, I am going to start the analysis for today. The first thing that I want to tell you, that if I talk about today's newspaper, there was nothing much on the front page, because they were talking about the need for new scanners at various airports. As we know that the flyers have increased, now people travel more by air. So, the security checks, there is a lot of chaos, as you must have heard about the chaos that has gripped the, let's say, our Indira Gandhi airport, that is at Delhi. So, the time has come to add on more screening, so that we could have faster security checks, so that the passengers are not able to miss their flights, right. So, this was the basic front page news that we had, right. But today's editorials were very important, and we are going to discuss the editorials today first. First of all, the first editorial is upholding the autonomy of the Election Commission. I think everyone is aware there have been lot of petitions that have been filed before the Supreme Court related to one thing, that is related to the appointment procedure, very important, of election commissioners. So, this thing is very important, and they are trying to touch upon a certain topic, that is regarding the independence of these particular bodies like Election Commission. There is also a debate that is going on regarding collegium, right. So, basically what this article wants to say, let's say we have three organs that we have of our constitution, or we could say of our democracy, that is legislature, executive and judiciary, right. These are the three wings that we have. If we talk about the classical understanding, that let's say there is the thing called you have to conduct an election, that is a work of administration and implementation. Earlier there was a notion that these things have to be done by these three wings only, that is executive, legislature and judiciary. But if we talk about healthy democracy, these particular institutions like let's say election commission, then we have information commissioners, these are basically known as what we call them as fourth branch institutions. We call them as fourth branch institutions. So, healthy constitutional democracies need what we known as the fourth branch institutions. I think everyone knows about right to information. If right to information has to be implemented, there needs to be a particular body, there needs to be certain commissioners who would be implementing it, they would be indulging in judicial matters as well, and they would be involving in administrative work as well. So, as a result we had this whole setup under this information commissioner. But the problem lies here only. If the information commissioners are solely appointed by the executive, let's say they are solely appointed by the executive, then it becomes a worrisome thing, because if we want to gain certain information, we are gaining information related to let's say certain law, certain executive matter, and these are the ones that are appointing those particular information commissioners. So, as a result, over the period of time, this article wants to say that this information commission has just become a, let's say, it does not have the teeth that it needed to have. So, same is the case that is coming up with collegium as well. But Supreme Court in the famous Vineet Narayan case, very important, said that rule of law has to prevail, that the appointment of CBI director would have to be ratified by. Now, here not only the role of executive plus the role of judiciary is mentioned, that its role is also very, very important. Like, it would be appointed by a 3-member body that included Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India. Now, these things become very, very important if we have to give certain teeth to certain commissions that are basically labeled as 4th branch institutions. We need to make sure that their appointments are done in a very, very, we could say, healthy manner and in a democratic manner, so that they does not travest the justice. They do not travest the justice. So, these are the things that the Supreme Court has to keep in mind. So, what are the things that are in there in front of Supreme Court? एक चीज हो सकती है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट खुद ही एक जुडिशियल डिक्री पास कर दे that this is the way appointment of electional commissioners have to be there, right? But that is not the sign of a healthy democracy, because we need to involve political parties as well as the people as well. So, the better thing would be, this article wants to say, we shall have a remedy in the form of Supreme Court put certain interim guidelines but leaves a more permanent structural solution to the legislature. They can frame a overall, let's say, interim guidelines and leave it to the political parties or the party in power to have a more balanced representation of these election commissioners. This is the way this article wants. This problem needs to be resolved. If we want to ensure there is the independence of these particular commissions from the executive, and in the modern democracy these are very, very important and their implementation is very, very important. Very, very important to understand that these are labeled as 4th branch institutions, right? Now, this thing you need to understand related to this particular article, because here it is saying we have to uphold the autonomy of the election commission. Now, these are the serious debates that have engulfed, we could say, executive, legislature and judiciary. So, there shall be a common ground on which they have to come upon and decide what shall be the future related to the appointments of the election commissioners. I hope this point is being clear to you and you are getting aware of the situations that are now prevailing or the petitions that are pending before the Supreme Court, right? I hope this is clear to everyone, right? Okay. This article is very, very important for you guys to have an understanding what is the matter that is there and what could be the remedies. You can straight away use these points in your mains answers. Now, as this is the thing that have been in the news in this year, you can expect question on these in the UPSC mains next year, right? Okay. So, this was one of the first important article. The second article says the new normal in the Indo-Pacific contestation. Now, this thing you have to understand. This article is saying we know that India is a player, let's say, in this Indian Ocean region and plus in this South Asian region. These are the two areas on which this particular article focuses. One is the Indian Ocean region plus the South Asian region. Now, we know that India has a presence over these regions, but China is not too far away. China is also trying to widen its reach in these particular regions, that is in South Asian regions, by developing port, by giving economic aid, by debt structuring of the loans in Sri Lanka. So, it is having its we could say presence in the Indian Ocean region as well, plus in the South Asian region as well. Now, what is India trying to do in order to counter China? Plus, what is the response of the Quad countries as well? Given India is responding to this China's presence in these regions, Quad has also now started to respond in order to show their presence as well. Let's try to see how India and Quad are basically replying to the presence of China, right? Okay. Now, let's see steps taken by India and the rest of the Quad. In the Maldives, New Delhi is reciprocating President Ibrahim Solis India's first policy with massive economic assistance. So, India is trying to give more and more economic assistance to Maldives. In Nepal, Prime Minister Zuba's government has attempted to improve Nepal's overall bilateral relations with India. Nepal is trying to improve bilateral relationship with India. In the crisis at Sri Lanka, India this year alone has provided economic and humanitarian assistance and investment rupees worth $4 billion. So India is trying to invest in Maldives, India is trying to improve relationship with the Nepal, and India is trying to improve its economic ties with Sri Lanka by helping them in their most needy times, right? India's leading efforts in South Asia and the Indian Ocean have also attracted other Quad members. What are those other Quad members? Japan, USA and Australia. Now, what these are particularly doing? Japan is finalizing its talks with Sri Lanka on debt restructuring. In Maldives, Australia and US have committed to open their embassies and new areas of cooperation. In 2020, US signed defense and security framework with Maldives. So as you can see, they are trying to build more and more healthy relationship with the Maldives, that is USA and Australia. Earlier this year, Nepal ratified the US Millennium Challenge Cooperation, that is Nepal Compact, much to China's displeasure. So one thing we can see, if India is showing its presence in this particular region, in these areas of the South Asian countries, Quad countries are also replying. But China has taken a further step in this regard. How is China trying to retaliate? Let's try to see how it is trying to show its presence in this Indian Ocean region. Chinese surveillance vessel Yuan Wang 5 recently re-entered the Indian Ocean region. I hope everyone knows, recently we had to test our Agni missiles. So China did what? उन्होंने अपना एक surveillance vessel Indian Ocean में लेके आ गए हैं, because they trying to see their prevalence and they are trying to increase their surveillance. Plus, recently Beijing ने एक forum conduct किया था relation to Indian Ocean region. That was first ever China Indian Ocean region forum to institutionalize its presence in the region and challenge new initiatives such as the Quad and the Colombo Security Conclave. Now, one thing is very, very clear, that Quad countries are showing their presence in this region, and India and China have become the big players in this particular region. Now, it is up to these South Asian countries, that is Nepal, Maldives, Sri Lanka, that they have the two options in front of them for their political or the economic aid, that is India and China. Plus the economic turmoil these countries are going through, plus the political turmoil these countries are going through. If I talk about Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Bangladesh, so it becomes very, very important and imperative for India that it has to up its ante and increase its presence in this particular Indian Ocean region. Let's say Nepal, Maldives and Bhutan are struggling with depleting forex reserves. Bangladesh has reached a bailout agreement worth $4.5 billion with IMF. Sri Lanka is yet to chart its way out of the economic crisis. As 2023 marks an election year for a large part of South Asia, the economic grievances combined with political opportunism, very, very important. दो factors हैं. One is the economic opportunities or economic grievance that is there, plus the political opportunities that might come in the 2023. It becomes very, very imperative that it could lead to more, let's say, stability in this region, right? So these are the things that you need to understand. What is the right now situation that is going in this particular region, or the geopolitics that is happening around this Indian Ocean region, right? You need to know about the various frameworks like Quad, like these initiatives that India is overtaking and the China is taking. I hope this point is clear to everyone. If you are with me, just type yes in the comment box, right? Okay. These were the two important articles. There was one more article, but that was not that much relevant. We have already discussed, related to the interstate dispute that has started between Maharashtra and Karnataka, right? I think everyone knows about it, related to the problem of Belgavi area, that Maharashtra is trying to have its take on that particular region. So there is a problem of interstate dispute. We would see at the end what are those particular things, right? Okay. Now, I think everyone is knowing that we have a new global biodiversity framework. Let's say it was decided in Montreal, right? So this particular text page is trying to highlight what have been the things that have been adopted in this particular framework. This is a thing that was in the news yesterday that we discussed. So they are trying to highlight more on this particular topic. One thing they are trying to do, they are trying to bring you a picture related to the background of biodiversity as well. Let's say this article wants to highlight the importance of biodiversity. I think everyone must be knowing the importance of biodiversity. Quickly write down the importance of biodiversity in the comment box. Second, what are the threats to biodiversity? This particular article wants to say we had the HE framework, that were the targets to be achieved by 2020, and after HE we have this new Kunming-Montreal agreement. And yesterday we talked about that there was a pledge that has been adopted at this particular conference, that is 30x30 pledge, where we want to at least conserve and protect 30% of our land and seas by 2030. Very, very important. Along with it, recognizing indigenous rights. Along with it, protecting indigenous rights. So this is the particular article that it wants to highlight upon, that why is the protocol adopted by these countries, what is the global environment facilities, and why should GDP be re-evaluated as a chief determinant of development. One thing they are trying to say, that we have global environment facility as the new mechanism. Yesterday I told you they have told to establish a special trust fund within this global environment facility that will try to implement certain provisions of our biological convention, that is United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. I think this is the particular thing that this article wants to convey, and it is saying GDP only talk about production. It doesn't take into account the destruction we are causing to biodiversity. So that thing needs to be taken care of and has to be put in mind when we are talking about conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of biodiversity, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits that are arising out of biodiversity. I hope this point is clear to everyone. Now this is very, very important. One thing more that I want to add on to this article, that there are now total 23 targets that have to be achieved by 2030, plus there are total 4 goals. There are 4 goals in this new adopted framework under 23 targets to be achieved by 2030. I hope this point is clear to everyone, right? Okay. So this was this particular article that you guys need to know, and 188 countries have adopted out of 196 countries this particular convention, right? Okay. Let's move to the next topic now. I think everyone knows this fact that we are right now having presidentship of G20 as well as United Nations Security Council. Few days back I had told you about that this G20 presidentship is very, very important for us, because there are certain reforms that we want to make it happen in United Nations Security Council are not happening. Like the reforms, if we want to have, they cannot happen. Why? Because this procedure is very, very complex due to the veto power that has been given to the 5 permanent members. This thing you need to understand, that at United Nations Security Council there are permanent members and non-permanent members. These are totally 5 that are permanent members, and they have the exclusive veto power. So if any decision has to be taken related to the reforms, it has to be approved by everyone. So this becomes a very complex and cumbersome procedure. Now if we have to make sure that we are able to do this reform, then we have to make sure that we need certain, let's say, consensus among these particular 5 nations. Otherwise, if reforms are not done, maybe over the period of time the G20 could be elevated as the more, let's say, political mandate if we have to settle the issues worldwide, because there are numerous issues that has been pending for the developing countries, for the least developed countries, for the small island countries. This article wants to say, कौन उनकी आवाज सुनेगा? Who would hear their voices if the reforms are not initiated in United Nations Security Council? So the time has come that there needs to be a certain reforms in United Nations, otherwise G20 could take a more prominent role. Otherwise, G20 could take a more prominent role in international affairs than United Nations. I hope this point is clear to everyone, right? So, this was the basic theme that it wanted to highlight upon, right? Okay. Okay. This is the related to our cultural part. 3 more sites have been added to tentative list of UNESCO. You need to know the names. First is the Gujarat's Vadnagar town. Now, this is a very, very historic town. Basically, it is a municipality in the Mehsana district of Gujarat. Its history traces back to 8th century BC. So, this is very, very important. It has been added in the tentative list. The second is the Sun Temple at Modhera. I think everyone knows about this Sun Temple at Modhera. And the third important is rock cut sculptures of Unakoti in Tripura. Very, very important. Rock cut sculptures in Unakoti in Tripura. It is an ancient holy place associated with Shivai worship. It is a massive gallery set in a forested area, displaying a number of towering low relief images in a unique style. So, these are the 3 basically sites that have been added to the tentative list of the UNESCO. One thing you need to remember, India has now 52 sites on the UNESCO tentative list. Very important fact for the prelims, that it has now 52 sites on this UNESCO tentative list, and the recent 3 additions have been this Sun Temple, this Vadnagar town, and this rock cut sculptures of Unakoti in Tripura, right. So, these were the basic important things that I have gathered and collected from the newspaper that are important for you. Now, let us try to see the newspaper and find about other things that could be of importance for us, and just try to have a look at them, right. Okay. See, this is the thing I have already told you. This was a front page news. New scanners to speed up security check at airports. We have already discussed this. What are the issues that have been faced by the passengers who are traveling through air at the various international airports. More recently, the chaos has been at the Delhi International Airport. So, they are saying we need to have more security screening devices, let us say at security checkups where there have been more delays, that's leading to passengers missing their flights, right. So, this was one of the important news. There was nothing important on the states page or the south page. Editorial we have already discussed. This is upholding the autonomy of the election commission. Then are the fluid boundaries. One thing we have already discussed, that is related to interstate dispute resolution. Now, the question has come before the Supreme Court, but it becomes very, very important to understand that how this could be solved in the Supreme Court, because if we talk about their reorganization that happened in 1956, it was basically on the premise of linguistic basis, right. So, how think this could be solved by Supreme Court now? It article wants to say that it needs a matter mechanism, that is to accommodate the cultural diversity. The political parties of Maharashtra and Karnataka needs to resolve this matter by their own and not leave in the hands of the Supreme Court. So, this is the thing this particular article wants to say, that is the fluid boundaries. I hope this point is clear to everyone, and I am very happy that you guys have mentioned what are the advantages or the threats to the biodiversity. Very, very good. Okay. What is Rohit Bharadwaj? We would be discussing over here structuring and functioning of COP. COP is basically the highest decision making body if we talk about any convention, right. So, basically its aim is to take certain measures that they meet after some time and try to adopt certain procedures that is necessary for the implementation of the basic convention, that is United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, that has its origin from the Earth Summit 1992. I hope this point is clear to you, Rohit. Okay. So, this thing we have already discussed, the new normal in the Indo-Pacific, right. Nothing important here. Text page we have discussed a new global biodiversity framework, right. Okay. This was the one thing that was in the news related to the cap that has been imposed by G7 countries related to the pricing of the Russian oil, let us say. Now, this is the thing that they are asking about, the economics of this Russia selling its oil below $60 per barrel. This article wants to say that if in the coming future their cost of production increases, then it would not be feasible for the Russians to supply it at less than $60 per barrel. Basically, the aim of the G7 countries when they have levied these particular sanctions is trying to reduce the finances of the Russia. They are trying to hit the finances of Russia, not on their global oil production. Basically, their main focus is कि उनके finances को कम कर दिया जाए. If they are able to control their finances, maybe in the coming term it could hamper or restrict them investing in the war in the Ukraine. So, this is one of the form of sanctions that these particularly G7 countries have tried to impose on the Russia. So, the question is related to the economics of Russia, that when they are producing this particular, let us say, oil, they are earning a very little profit margin due to this sanction that has been imposed by the West, right. So, this is the article that it wants to say about related to the cost of production, and in the long run it could have an impact on the Russia, right. So, this was a basic theme of this particular article. देखो हम कुछ छोड़ नहीं रहे हैं, सब कवर कर रहे हैं, right. This we have already discussed. If not reformed, UN will be overtaken by other organizations. ठीक है, और इसमें कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं था. और यहां पे भी कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. ओके, नाउ this thing you need to understand, that government is trying to promote one thing, that you know that it is now the International Year of Millets. So, the country's focus is trying to gain the importance and try to see the farmers growing more and more millets and the people or the citizens consuming more and more millets as a way of increasing or having a supplement in their diet as a rich protein food. So, this thing you need to know about this particular article, that PM Modi extolled the virtues of millets and sports in improving citizens' health. So, basically he was trying to highlight the importance of the millets in improving the citizens' health. I hope this point is clear to everyone, right, because these are high in nutrition. Okay, one thing is important here. Now, I think you must be knowing about Project 75B, under which we had an agreement with France that we would have, let us say, 6 Scorpion submarines that would be built under this particular Project 75 under or at Mazagaon Dock Shipbuilders Limited में. तो वहां पे जो हमारी 5th सबमरीन है वो अभी हमें रिसेंटली डिलीवर हुई है, दैट इज वगीर. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. जो 6th वन है उसका नाम क्या है? वगशीर. 6th वन नेम इज वगशीर and 5th one name is Vagir, that have been recently commissioned. So, it is a big achievement for the Indian Navy. I would tell you the names of the first 4 as well. The first 4 names were INS Kalavari, INS Khanderi, INS Karanj and INS Vela. These are the important names that you need to know related to Project 75B. I would try to repeat the names as well. INS Kalavari, Khanderi, then we have Karanj, then we have Vela, then we have Vagir that have completed its whole trials, and finally we would have Vagshir that would be, let us say, after the 2023 end we would get this particular Scorpion submarine as well. That is very important for India to have a basic stealth, let us say, in this particular navy field, because if we want to have more and more influence in the Indian Ocean region. So, these things become very important, right. Okay. So, this was a basic thing that you need to know, that Navy takes delivery of submarine Vagir to be commissioned in January, right. Okay ji. Now, this is all sports, our world page, nothing more important that has come up over here, right. Then we have the business page. There is basically talking about inflation, growth. These are the indicators that have been highlighted upon recently upon the inflation. So, we have to control the inflation, keeping in mind the prices that could increase in the West and the price stabilization on the, let us say, vegetable prices, vegetable के जो prices हैं उन पे ऊपर क्या effect पड़ेगा. So, this is the debate that has been going on, but nothing substantial is coming if I am talking about this particular thing, right. Okay. Then I think everyone knows Argentina's World Cup winners arrive home to heroes have welcome. Let's say this is a big let's say big win for Argentina and a relief for Argentina citizens, but their economy is not that well. It says how a sport can unite a nation, right? If a sport can unite a nation, it can uplift the sentiments and the moods of the people, right? So this is a very, very big thing for this Argentina, South American country, right? So it is a very, very achievement, big achievement for them, right? Okay, nothing more important here, and then it is a sports page. Okay, so this is it. There is nothing more beyond that in this particular newspaper for today. So this particular newspaper of today that had the more important or the highlighted thing was related to this INS Vagir that would be commissioned in 2023, and plus 2 articles that you need to know about: the autonomy of the election commissions, plus what is the new problems or new geopolitics that is revolving around this Indian Ocean region, let's say, right? Our South Asian region as well as the Indian Ocean region. I hope you guys are with me and able to understand what I am trying to say. It has been a lovely session. We have done all the things that we wanted to do, right? So one is a question we have. See, अगर हम क्वाड कंट्रीज के साथ हैं तो हमारा कोई भी बुरा नहीं हो रहा अगर हम नेटो के साथ नहीं है, बिकॉज इंडिया हैज फ्रेम्ड इट्स foreign policy in a very beautiful manner. India is having its free trade agreement with European Union that they are trying to do, and European Union is also keen on having a free trade agreement with India despite being India buying oil from Russia, let's say, right? So there is nothing that much problem that is there. These are the strategic interests that each country has. USA has certain investment, let's say in Ukraine, it is giving grants, it is giving loans, let's say it is investing over there. So there is nothing like that. India in its this particular framework, if I say, it's having the best foreign policy if we try to visualize it as it has been admired by the other countries as well, right? Komalvana, I think this point is clear to everyone, right? Hanji. Weekly current affairs are now being conducted on let's say on Saturday. You can see it on the YouTube, right? I hope this point is clear to Komal, and we can wrap up the session for today. We would see each other again tomorrow same time at 9 AM. So do join us, be happy and stay positive and keep preparing for your papers, right? So thank you so much, take care, bye bye.